Hello, everybody. I'm going to get going here in just a minute. I thought I was ready. Nah, not quite yet. So, because I got goodies. I brought goodies. So, got to get up my goodies because I was literally on my phone, just kind of like reading stuff, more stuff about sacred symbols. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot. So, I'm going to try to cover basics, but there's a lot of information that I could talk about, but I only have an hour. So I'm going to talk about more the basic things. I mean, I can, like I said, it gets really quantum, but we don't need to go quantum. So let me, so, because I got my little, so excited to show you. I'm even more excited that I have some goodies that I made notes, but it was one of those where if I'm like, I have to do my shapes with my notes or I'm not going to remember. No. So, besides, I'm waiting for more people to go on. This is going to be fairly interactive, although a lot of people don't ask a whole lot of questions, which is fine, but we're going to learn some cool stuff. Because honestly, I actually learned quite a bit by, I learned this stuff really early on in the game. But to go back, I've done this for a while now. I'm finding a lot more information. Like I said, I'm just really excited to show you some stuff. There's that one, and this one goes with this one, and this one goes with that one. So super excited. Oh, this is all glued. So I love it when I come on these lives. Everybody's like, hey, I'm from, somebody says Fremont, somebody's from California, North Carolina. Like, that's so cool. So cool. That one. And then there should be a Merkaba. There it is. Yay. Okay. So first of all, like I was saying earlier, there is so much information when you start talking about sacred symbols and you start talking about different shapes and stuff like that. I'm going to try to, like I said, try to keep this as simple as I can. But first and foremost, understand this really kind of starts from like nothingness, the void, right? And it talks about that in the Bible, how, God was there was void. That's it. And the next thing is that he spoke, which is the sacred symbol of Om. And he spoke, and then there was light. And the light is depicted as pictures as well. So this is pretty interesting. Basically put in especially old Sanskrit sacred stuff, straight lines are more masculine energy, curved lines are more feminine. So Adam was more of a straight line, whereas Adam was more of a curved. So understand, if you're talking symbols to represent that, the Adam, the male, would have been, if you want to think about kind of a six-sided thing, I guess, because you have to remember it was made out of void, right? So basically it's the shape of up, down, front, back, left, right. And then if you were to connect all those dots, it's kind of like an icosahedron. And then they put a circle around that, and that circle then represents the female. So then from that, they take circles and we go from there. So, if you guys remember back in science class, how you got to see the egg like divide, right? So you got your egg, and then when it gets fertilized, it divides into two circles. Now those two circles are kind of like the beginning of the show, if you want to think about it that way. But those two circles, there's an actual verb, I guess, terminology for that. And it's Vescia Pisces is what that is. These two circles that are evenly apart from each other, but yet overlapping. And if you were to take those two and multiply those two out, then you would have 4, right? So after, what happens is if you get 7 of those circles together, because they'll divide that way, when you have those 7, that is considered then the seed of life. So that is quite literally kind of like a baby in the making, right? So we have 7 little circles around. That is considered then what's called the seed of life. And that is usually represented by, and I don't have a seed of life one here. Hang on, I should. Right there. So this would be considered the seed of life. This is the shape. So there's several different circles all in one, but this is considered the seed of life. Okay, this is the shape that I'm talking about. Now, if you were to take this and multiply it again and put more circles around it, you then get the flower of life. So this is the flower of life. This is the shape for that. And you see a lot of times these are used, you'll see these, especially these two, used a lot. I find it ironic that a lot of times that you're going to see these in like ancient architecture, especially Greek architecture, because a lot of these sacred symbols were used way back when. Ancient Egypt, mystery schools, things like that. So again, this is the seed of life. This is the flower of life. Now, if you take this one, multiply it again, you then get the fruit of life, which is just a little bit more compact than this. So you have the fruit of life. And then if you start thinking more dimensionally, from the fruit of life, then comes the Merkaba. So like I said, it gets really techy. I'm just going to try to keep it simple. So I do want to talk about kind of how this sacred symbol stuff started. And it really did start with like a circle. And then of course it divided into two, that's the Vesca Pisces. And then it divided again into 7. And then that was the seed of life. Like I said, you have the seed of life, flower of life, fruit of life, and the Merkaba. All right. So like I said, it gets kind of deep, but I just want to talk about these because again, you're going to see these a lot. Especially when you go into any metaphysical stores or even in ancient architecture. I find it ironic that a lot of Catholic churches have those shapes all over. So outside of that, there's some other different type of sacred symbols as well. And I'm going to be like brief about it because there are hundreds of different symbols that represent things. Like for instance, you have earth, air, wind, fire. So that's a triangle that's up, one triangle that's down, one that has a line through it, one that's upside down with a line through it. So that's just 4 of them. And then, I mean, it gets as complex as, you know, trying to figure out like the tree of life, the Kabbalah tree of life. There's that one. And then you have, you know, Metatron's cube, which is representative of that Merkaba that I was talking about earlier. So the Merkaba is actually found, that's kind of how our aura or our auric field spins in a bit of a Merkaba. So everybody likes to think our aura is just like this round little ball. And it's actually not. If you really want to get technical and quantum about it, it's actually a Merkaba that is spinning both on the top and the bottom. So 2 triangles that are spinning in different directions. All right. So, and like I said, from that, excuse me, this is Metatron's cube. And then we have the Jewish star. That's another sacred symbol. We can also go into like the Ankh, which is what you see like Isis usually has on the top of her staff, that circle with a cross on it. There's the unilome. I mean, there's so many different symbols. I'm really not going to talk about those for simplicity reasons. But I really do want to talk about the golden ratio, which is the Fibonacci sequence. And I also want to talk about Platonic solids because you'll really see those quite often. And a lot of people don't know how to use them. And I realize that when we're talking about sacred symbols, Platonic solids are exactly that. Think about Platonic, like natural, earthy. These are the things that occur in nature. So that's why I want to kind of hit more of the nature type symbols that are more occurring in nature because I'm a nature girl anyway. But this also goes then into crystals as well. So it's kind of like one leads into another, right? Okay, so talked about that. The weirdest thing that I've come across is that this is like these sacred symbols or shapes it's used in different galaxies too. I mean, if you want to get really weird and technical, I mean, when you're talking those symbols that are the crop circles, for instance. So those are almost always sacred symbols. So when we're talking about universal or like global, you have to actually think bigger. It's more in galaxies this way. So that's why a lot of times if you go on different galaxies, which we're never going to, maybe in this dive, who knows? But understand that is a symbol that even other galaxies use. So that's why I'm like, when you have to really think big on this, and when you get so like bigger, like I said, that's kind of where I was at before I got on the live. I was like, oh God, there's a lot of info, but I got to make this simple. So with that, I do want to talk about the Fibonacci sequence. So Fibonacci sequence. Okay. So the Fibonacci sequence basically put is a ratio or a way of maybe a unit of measure but this is something that happens natural in Mother Nature. And so if you think about like a spiraled seashell, that shape, that is the Fibonacci sequence. So it's kind of like if you take 1 plus 1, it equals 2, right? And then you take 2 plus 1, that equals 3. And then you take 2 plus 3, that equals 5. And if you keep going in that same pattern, 2 plus 5 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. You take that pattern, that's that sequential pattern, and it will go to infinity. If you were to quite literally map that out or draw it, it's exactly that. It looks like a shell, like a seashell. So seashells are perfect examples of that Fibonacci sequence. What I find fascinating is some of the best pictures that have been drawn or painted incorporated the Fibonacci sequence within it. Not only that, some of the best music we hear has the Fibonacci sequence. So please understand, these aren't just symbols. These are things that occur in nature that when used are extremely powerful for human nature itself. So that's why I'm like, I really wanted to talk about this, the golden ratio stuff, because we see it a lot replicating in nature. And remember, I'm a nature girl. So if you were to take the bottom of a pine cone and turn it upside down, it's a Fibonacci sequence. If you were to take, I'm trying to think of what else, cactuses are another really good one. If you look down on a cactus, perfect Fibonacci sequence. Lots of flowers. 5-petaled flowers, 8-petaled flowers, 13-petaled flowers. So you want to get real deep, 144, that's like, now we're talking sunflowers. So there's, like I said, you have to understand that it is naturally replicated in nature. So I've even seen it in like little ferns. When ferns come up, they have that perfect little, that spiral pattern. That's a Fibonacci sequence. Yolanda, that's perfect. Eardrums. So that golden ratio basically is 1 to 1 to 6. So if you kind of want to think about it this way, even arms are that way. Like if you were to think about like this is an, this is an inch. Well, this is going to be an inch and 6, whatever half inches are. So, but that's the ratio is 1 to 1 to 6. Or 1 to 6. So it even occurs even naturally in your arms, in your legs, like you're going to see it all over. So the reason why I want to talk about that one is because if you really understand the Fibonacci sequence, you can really begin to use this to your advantage, especially when you're talking about, when you're speaking, when you're playing music, when you are painting, drawing, anything that you might be doing. If you incorporate that Fibonacci sequence, it's extremely powerful. It's very, very powerful. And I'm going to encourage you to do your own research because it gets deep and it gets real deep. And like I said, I am scratching the surface. And most people that are probably, really understand the Fibonacci sequence are going, she's basic. I'm like, well, it gets real deep. The other thing is that you need to understand, not only does it occur in nature, it occurs in nature so much that even tornadoes and hurricanes are that perfect Fibonacci sequence. So it replicates and it occurs all the time in nature. It does occur in crystals too. So along with that, now I want to kind of talk a little bit about Platonic solids. And I kind of want to really hit the Platonic solids more than anything else, because I don't think people not only know how to use them, they don't understand what the shapes are all about or why we see these shapes naturally occurring or how to use them to our advantage. So understand, a lot of times when we're talking Platonic solids, they come as a group of 5 or a group of 7. So I'm going to talk about the group of 5, but sometimes we have a group of 7. The additional 2 is the Merkaba and the circle, or the sphere. So I don't want to take it out of the package because I'm borrowing it from the store. So, but that's a sphere that I'm talking about, like just a typical stone sphere. And a Merkaba is, I think everybody has seen a Merkaba before, but I kind of want to show you what a Merkaba looks like. So that's the Merkaba right there. So that is the 2 kind of bonus shapes that we usually see when we're talking about Platonic solids. So, but I'm going to be talking about the 5 main ones. But these are if you get a group of 7, usually there's 2 more. That's what these are all about. And so, like I said, This is more feminine. Spheres are always feminine. So, and then where, like this is always feminine, whereas cubes are always masculine, if you want to think about it that way. And then Merkaba is basically to represent your auric field. But remember, that's also like the fruit of life being multiplied again in a 3D form. That's where the Merkaba comes from. So the Platonic solids, I find fascinating, first of all, because I think if you guys remember back in grade school, you learned about the Pythagorean theorem, and that Plato invented that, or Plato kind of came up with that. Well, that is where Platonic solids come from, is from Plato. So they're actually named after him, first of all, which I was like, duh, right? So what I want to talk about real quick is those 5 individual type crystals, not necessarily crystals, but shapes, and kind of how to use them to your advantage. Okay, so they're all kind of different, but I'm gonna talk about one at a time so we can kind of grasp this. All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a tetrahedron. Now this is not a pyramid. Pyramids are different. All right. So this is a tetrahedron. So I'm going to show you kind of the shape here, and these are shungite. So that's what these are. But this is a tetrahedron. It kind of looks like a pyramid, but it's a little different. It's just a little different. It's like an equilateral triangle. Learned that one in math class, right? So, but that's what this one is right here. So maybe talk about the tetrahedron. This represents fire, and that also represents your solar plexus. So the solar plexus is all about self-worth, self-confidence, motivation, action, get you going. It's also associated with the pancreas, and digestive stuff. So this is also really good for like smart thinking, quick thinking. So if you need to increase your thinking skills, solar plexus is where it's at. So what's really cool about these is that if you pair these with other fire chakra or fire crystals, I say it that way. But if you to pair it up with other things like, for instance, fire agate, red jasper, citrine, golden healer, fire quartz. If you pair those crystals with this shape, now it doesn't have to be shungite; it can be any shape, and it can be, like I said, this is moonstone, so it doesn't really matter. But when you use this shape and pairing it up with those crystals, this shape will amplify those crystals quite a bit. So to use this one, now you can use any of these shapes in a crystal grid. Crystal grids, depending on if they're for you or you're sending that energy out, are very easy to use. I did a video on crystal grids a while back, so I'm going to have you watch that. But you can make whatever you want with a crystal grid. And it's a manifestation tool. It helps you to kind of enhance prayer, if you want to think about it that way, but enhance your intent, really. You want to place this one, even if you don't pair it up with other crystals, you would place this shape where you need a kick of motivation. So if you're usually lethargic, say at 2 o'clock, well, we're going to whip out one of these and set it right down next to us. It's going to help to increase the motivation. Now, remember, this is all dealing with the fire chakra. So if you put this near your fire, if you put this next to a candle, if you're out and about and have this in your pocket, or I don't think you want this in your bra, but if you have this in your pocket and you're sitting next to the fireplace, it basically helps you to hold or absorb the fire energy. It helps you to absorb that fire push, the motivation, the energy. And then when you do that, when you kind of bring it back, you kind of want maybe to set an intent with that crystal and say, okay, I'm going to go sit up by the fire pit, and I really want this to capture that fire energy because I need a little bit more motivation. And so all you kind of do is just either place it next to the fire or stick it in your pocket while you're next to the fire. It works great. The other thing you could do is, if you're laying down, you could put this on your tummy, because it's going to help to amplify your solar plexus. So if you have issues with your solar plexus, you have issues with self-confidence, you have issues with motivation, you have issues with self-worth, this is a great one to place right above your belly button. That's about where your solar plexus is at. So that's a great way to do this. If you were to take 2 of these tetrahedrons and fuse them together, like put one in the other one, that's where the Merkaba comes in. All right. So that's why I'm like, technically, this is just a play on this. So I want to go simple. This is a simple shape. You double the shape, you make a Merkaba. Merkaba, the name itself is pretty the shape itself is, sorry, my son just got home. The shape itself is really interesting because, or excuse me, the name itself is very interesting. Merkaba literally means mind, body, spirit. So Mer, let's see, what is Mer? Mer is light. Mer means light. Ka means spirit. Ba means body. So literally it interprets mind, body, soul. Merkaba. So sometimes it's spelled M-E-R-K-A-B or M-E-R-K-A-B-A-H. Sometimes they leave off the H. It all depends. So, but we see Merkabas in the crystal world a lot. And I tell people all the time, meditate with it. Hold it in your hand, just relax, and it's going to help to amplify your auric field or to heal the aura or the auric field. This one, remember, is just associated mostly with the fire, with the, solar plexus or the fire chakra. Okay. Got through that one. But like I said, this one is great to be able to use that fire energy if you don't have a lot of money for crystals. So all you need is one. This is it right here. So, and I will tell you, these shapes, you don't lose. A lot of times with crystals, if you lose them or break them, you don't need them anymore. Okay. So these shapes rarely disappear. Rarely disappear. Like I said, this is called a tetrahedron. All right. Cool. We're going to go to the next one. Try to do this the best that I can with English because some of these words are pretty big. So next one is the cube. Understand that in Mother Nature, the cube actually is, we find it a lot with crystals, especially in pyrite and fluorite. So halite too. There's a lot of times that cubes do come natural in nature. So this is called a hexahedron, 6 sides. It's a cube. So fancy word is hexahedron. Now, if you want to get a little bit more technical, we could add a rhombahedron. Rhombus, remember geometry? So we can add a rhombahedron in this one. It's just more, it's more rectangular, basically. Optical calcite's really common to have the rhombahedron. But this one is associated with your root chakra. This is all about grounding and earthing. This one is associated with earth. The other one I showed you, this tetrahedron, this is the fire one. So this one is the earth one. Each one is going to represent Mother Nature. So this one is a big one if you have stress or anxiety. A lot of times if you have trouble grounding and you're in la-la land, we need a cube. So, and remember, we're just talking about the shape, not necessarily the crystal, just the shape. All right. Because this shape alone is extremely grounding, very, very grounding. If you pair this up with like smoky quartz, black obsidian, or any of the obsidians, pyrite, garnet, black tourmaline, it'll amplify the grounding that you might need. And when I say pair it up, you just place the crystal next to the other one. That's it. That's all you got to do. So especially with places where you feel the most stressed out, the most anxiety ridden, because that's your anxiety lays in your root chakra. No different than your tetrahedron right here. That's the fire chakra. This is where depression lives. So that's your solar plexus. So people that have depressive issues usually have very weak solar plexuses. So a tetrahedron would be great. People that have high anxiety or high stress, cubes, this shape, excellent for you because it helps to ground it out. It literally pushes that energy through your feet in a weird way, if you want to think about it that way. This is also very nature-y. So if you can't get outside in Mother Nature because the weather is horrible, cubes are good. A lot of times people want to ground their house, and why they want to do that is because they're usually in an apartment. So they're in the second, third floor, fourth level, and they can't ever feel like they're grounded. So I'm going to recommend that they get 4 cubes and put them in each one of the corners. Easiest way to do it. So that's going to help to keep the apartment or their home grounded. So they're a little bit more logical. They're not so up in la-la land, and they can sleep a little bit better. Like I said, this one helps you to connect to Mother Nature. So if you, again, if it's cold outside, you want to be able to go outside, but you can't, this is a great way. Another weird one about this that people maybe not realize is that since this is so earthy and naturey, if you want to try to maybe get in contact with more elementals, this would be a great one to do. Easiest way to do this is put this in a fairy garden, or put this next to a fairy picture. So this shape again will help to amplify the reach out to nature for you to maybe be able to communicate a little bit. But like I said, I thought this was really interesting because this is a good one for, like I said, to reach out to nature. So any elementals that you maybe want to try to contact. So that makes sense. Okay. Oh, and the other one with this is that since this is related to nature, great to put in plants. So if you have maybe a sick plant or plant that just isn't doing that well, put a cube in it. Put a cube in it. And like I said, this is just a shungite cube. It could be any really crystal. It's the shape that matters. It truly is the shape. So like I said, if I had a sick plant, I would actually get a moss agate cube. So moss agate is the best for nature and plants, and putting a cube in there is going to amplify the plant's energy itself. So great. All right, so okay, that's a cube. Everybody knows what a cube looks like, but it's also known as a hexahedron. So, but again, this is great for grounding, stress and anxiety, nature, and all you have to do, like I said, is place it in the area where you're the most stressed. So maybe on a desk, or like I said, especially at work, if you're stressed out at work, put it on the desk. If you are stressed out because, you have to talk to your mom on the phone, stick it next to the phone. So any place where you feel that you get stressed out very easy. Some people put these in the cars because they have anxiety when it comes to driving in cars. Excellent idea. The other thing you can do to amplify your grounding energy is if you want to put these kind of as you're sitting on the couch or something, if you want to sit on this or put it at the bottom of your feet and just kind of have your feet kind of touching it like this, the bottom of your feet, great way to ground as well. So there's several different ways that you can use these types of shapes. So that's another easy way to use these. All right, cool. So let's see. Reminds me of my husband's D&D dice. So yeah, a lot, like I said, it's amazing to me when you really start understanding these shapes and those Platonic solids, how many times you see them all over. That's why I'm like going, this gets to be really big quick. So that's like, we're just going to keep it simple here. Next one is going to be the octahedron. So the octahedron represents air. So that's what this shape is. It's kind of a weird, funky, it's 8 triangular sides. So it's kind of a different funky shape right there. I'm going to try to twist it so you guys can see it. So that is your octahedron, 8 triangular sides right there. This represents air, and air is represented by your heart chakra. So if you are working on love and forgiveness and nurturing and like integration, healing, self-awareness, any of those, that's where we want to use this shape in particular. This actually occurs quite often with fluorite, especially rainbow fluorite. That's this shape that comes very natural in Mother Nature with the octahedron. Again, with this being the air chakra associated with the heart chakra, any crystals associated with the heart chakra, rose quartz, rhodonite, rhodochrosite, of course, rainbow fluorite, green aventurine, malachite, any of those are excellent. So again, this one is all representing about the heart. This one is a good one that if you are grieving or you're having trouble over a breakup, this is the perfect shape to quite literally just put right on your heart. So I know a lot of ladies have bras. This is a good one to put right there in the bra. If not, just laying down flat on your back and just placing it here is going to help open up and balance and align your heart chakra. This one's pretty interesting because you can use it almost like a double terminated point. So because of the triangular sides and everything. So if you choose to use this for like more energy work, this is a great one to put one in this hand and one in this hand, and it acts like a circuit in your body to get your energy flow going. So that's another way that you can incorporate these or use these. But remember, this represents air. So believe it or not, to help to amplify the energy of this one, use air. Blow on it. So blow on it or use a feather. Feathers again represent air. So you can weirdly charge these shapes on feathers. Like I said, or you can breathe into it to activate it. Of course, any of these that I'm talking about, you can use as crystal grids. So like I said, you can use this shape in the middle of your crystal grid to be able to maybe send loving energy to somebody that maybe is grieving, or if you're having a breakup of sorts, you can put this one in the middle and have, again, those quartz crystals pointing towards you to amplify that energy. Again, I did a video on this on YouTube. Just check that out. So, but like I said, this one is really about the heart chakra. And like I said, forgiveness and stuff like that. So those are really easy ways to be able to use this one. But like I said, a lot of times I've seen these used several times, like I said, with double terminated points. Good. Next one. Here's where it gets a little weird. So hang in there with me. This next one is I can't pronounce it that well. Icosahedron. Hopefully I said it right. So icosahedron has 20 rectangular faces. So that's what this one is right here. Sees a lot. There it is. They're all the same all the way around. So this represents the water. This is also associated with your sacral chakra. So sacral chakra is all about emotional release. So this is a good one. A lot of people's solar plexuses, or excuse me, sacral chakras have issues when they're working on the dark night of their soul, because they're really truly working on subconscious emotional baggage that they're releasing, or trauma that they're releasing. So if you really want to work on emotional trauma, you really want to work on your sexuality, your creativity, your codependency, your trust within relationships, this is going to be the shape that we want. So again, this is all about the water or sacral chakra. If you pair this one up with, say, carnelian, fire agate, moonstone, but remember, this is also the water one. So Larimar is a great one. Opal is a great one for this one, or tangerine quartz. So these are excellent to be able to pair up with that to amplify not only this crystal's energy, but this energy as well. Now, this one is a great one because if it's water safe, which shungite is, if you throw this one in the bathtub, I tried this just to see if anything happened. So yeah, it did. So it was weird because I put this in this tub, I put it in with some rose quartz. I didn't think anything of it. And the next thing I know is I'm like, why am I getting like cryy emotional? And then I'm like, oh, am I PMSing? I'm like, no, I'm not PMSing. Why am I getting all cryy emotional? Where in the hell is this coming from? And then I realized I had this in the tub and I was like, oh, I'm releasing some subconscious crap that I wasn't even aware of. So I'm like, you want to work on some stuff? This shape really, like these shapes really do work. It doesn't seem like this little tiny shape would do anything. Oh, it does. So again, if you want to put this one in the middle of a crystal grid, it's excellent to be able to work on those emotional traumas, maybe at a slower pace. But again, this one's all about the water. So anything to do with water is going to help to amplify this one. What I find fascinating is that if you want to make an elixir, which is gem water, you can put this inside the water and it's actually going to change the vibration of the water. You just have to make sure it's a water safe crystal. Like for instance, we don't want to put malachite in water and drink it. So if you know for sure that it's going to be water safe, go ahead. But if you're unsure, all you're going to do is place this next to the water. It'll still do the same thing. You don't have to put it inside the water, but if you place it right next to it or underneath it, works just as well. So don't feel like you have to, be like, well, I wonder if it's going to hurt me or not. I'm like, if you're even doubtful, don't do it. So just set it right next to the water. It'll still make an elixir or gem water. So this is another one. Remember, this is water, sacral, very feminine, very, very feminine. So if you choose to maybe put this in the moonlight and, set the intent for the crystal to suck up that moonlight energy water, or for the energy, and then place it again next to water, because you don't want to put your water outside because it might freeze. Great way to do it. So, but like I said, this one's a great one. This one's also good for sprays. So if you wanted to put this next to water and then like spray it to be able to open, align, balance the sacral chakra. Again, excellent way to do that. So I said, this was a really interesting one because I actually tried this one and put it in my tub and I thought, oh, emotional release. My sacral's good. Popped in there. I'm like, why am I? And it was weird because logically I wasn't thinking of anything. I just started to get emotional. And I realized I had this in the water and I did let that emotion get out because it's a subconscious release, meaning that I don't know where it's coming from, but clearly it's time for it to get out. So I let it go. I don't know what I let go, but I let it go. So, but that's the Icosahedron. Whew, I said that one right. Like the 20 little triangular faces. So that's what that's about. All right. Last but not least is the dodecahedron. So the dodecahedron has it's 12 sides, but all the sides are little pentagrams. So they're all that sides right there. Now this one represents, so far we talked about earth, wind, fire, water, right? Talked about the 4 elements. This represents spirit, ether, God. So this is associated with your crown chakra. This one is here. And this is, or even your upper chakras. So your throat, third eye, crown. These all represents these 3 right here. So this one is your connection to God source energy. This one is also it's very multi-dimensional. So this is one that if you want to ask those big questions, like, I want to find some stuff out from ancient Lemuria. So we're going to hold this in our hand along with maybe a Lemurian seed crystal. You're going to get rocked. And the answers may not come when you meditate, remember. It may come later on that night, maybe the next day, stuff like that. So like I said, this one's really interesting, but this is all about your connection to God or Christ consciousness or universal energy or however you want to verbalize it. This one's great when you pair it up with the Lemurian seeds, crystal points, gold and rutilated quartz. Amethyst is great too. Clear quartz, danbarite, auralite 23, super 7, any of those selenite. These are all great to pair up with this to really amplify that energy. Now, here's the deal with this one. You don't want to take this one to work. So this one's a good one to maybe put on an altar in your meditation space, maybe next to you in a nightstand. Because this one it'll tap you in to get some answers, but you don't want to stay in that state because your brains won't work the next day. You won't have any logic. That's why a lot of times if you're going to do a crystal grid with this one, you can, but just make it more short term. Maybe put it on the grid for like 12 hours or maybe 24. I really wouldn't put it more than that. But like I said, this one is absolutely here to help you tap into Christ consciousness energy for you to really understand yourself and your connection to God. So, but dodecahedrons are, these also naturally occur with garnet. So weirdly enough, garnet is one of those weird ones that it helps the crown, but it also helps your root as well. So I love garnet, and I think it's just because of the crown and the root, and it helps to balance that out for me, which those are 2 that I do have issues balancing. So, but very fascinating little crystal. Like I said, this one's the dodecahedron. So I wanted to talk about these again, just so you guys can understand how we can use these. So these are, like I said, I wanted to try to use them first before I talked to you about these or taught you, because it's kind of like I got to be able to use them to tell you what they did for me personally. Now, everybody's different. So the dodecahedron is one that I really didn't touch a whole lot because I do that for my day job. I don't want to do it when I'm here. So, and besides, I got enough blocks here that I don't want that. As a matter of fact, in my basement, I've got cubes. So I got cubes to ground me down because I don't want to be tapped in. So for me, I have several cubes downstairs that keeps this house fairly well grounded. So, and like I said, so that's why I'm like, I want to talk about these Platonic shapes because they are so cool. I don't think people know really what to do with them or how to use them. So that's why I wanted to do this video. But like I said, it really goes way bigger than that. And there are so many different symbols. And I'll tell you, a lot of times when you are starting to open up your third eye, when your clairvoyance is really beginning to open up, you'll begin to see some of those sacred symbols. You'll begin to see like a circle and then a triangle, and then you might see the all-seeing eye, and then you might see that flower of life grid, different things like that. So like I said, very, very common when you begin to your clairvoyance begins to pop on. Those are many times some of the symbols that we begin to see. I know that I saw that. I started seeing triangles, and then I saw the Merkaba shape, and I'm like, why am I seeing these? And then after a bit, then I would see the all-seeing eye and all those different symbols. And I realized that I know that I saw them early on in the game. I know other people do too. So, you know what? So somebody's asking, can you explain the Platonic solids related to the periodic table of elements? I would think that there is a shape for every element on that periodic table. I would absolutely think that, because like I said, even when we're talking about these shapes, they represent the chakras, and they also represent the basics of nature: earth, air, wind, fire. I would think that, and because I know, especially in what am I trying to think of, in alchemy, I know that alchemy, they do have certain symbols for like sulfur and different symbols for like metal, silver. They have all different those symbols. So I know each one of those periodic tables, each element does have a symbol that is associated with it. And I think that's more in, like I said, in more of that area, which gets really deep into that too. So, but I can tell you that if you lean more into that area, I think that you'll be able to find a little bit more information. I just know that, you know, in alchemy, I know that they use elements quite a bit. Whereas I know in Wiccan pagan, they have the tendency to more use the elements of earth, like earth, air, wind, fire. So earth, air, yeah, wind, fire. So they do have the tendency to use those. So it depends on what kind of area that you want to study, but usually alchemy is more associated with those, the periodic table, because I know that they use gold and they have a symbol for gold, all that different stuff. So I would tell you, look in that direction. I think you're going to find a lot of information there. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a little bit of something. I know that, like I said, after using these, I was pleasantly surprised. So I know that sometimes I struggle with my solar plexus. So being able to use the tetrahedron, actually I did feel that. So like I said, I just want to kind of go over these, but I especially want to go over those Platonic solids and how you're able to use those, because a lot of times you guys will see them, you know, kind of all around or even in the store, and a lot of people don't know what to do with them, or let alone how to use them. So hopefully this gives you a little bit more information on how to be able to use these things to your advantage too. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I know tomorrow night we'll do a Q&A, I believe, here on YouTube tomorrow. So hopefully I will see you tomorrow about 7 o'clock. And other than that, I would have you definitely check out the crystal grid video, so that way you can learn a little bit about how crystal grids work and how you can also incorporate those Platonic solids into crystal grids. All right, guys, thank you so much. Hopefully I will see you tomorrow night for that Q&A. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.